Two Worlds, One Family by Dragon Translator. Chapter 23. I am a Viking! The Terra Elder could not tell with certainty if Pale Wing carried eggs or not, and advised the pair to return in a few days for her to re-evaluate. She also advised Pale Wing to take things easy during those few days, prompting Frostfire to state that they would stay near to the Hofferson's hut. Hiccup held his laughter when Pale Wing shot her mate a glance that was equal parts loving and exasperated all in one. Still, when they landed back in the village, Pale Wing bowed to Hiccup alongside her mate and walked to the Hoffersons. The twins declared they were needed elsewhere, causing Barf and Belch to quickly bow to Hiccup before rushing after their riders. Those who remained shook their heads and headed into the Great Hall. Hiccup frowned upon finding Bucket setting up a shield onto a stand. To his right, Hiccup saw various earthenware bowls sitting in front of a table. Each held different colours of paint. Toothless ambled over, sniffing at one bowl near the edge of the table, and sneezed.
"Easy, Toothless," Stoic said, walking over. "Bucket wouldn't like it if you messed with his paints."
"Dad?" Hiccup asked, looking up at his father. Stoic smiled and placed a hand upon the shoulder Sharpshot was not peeking over.
"Bucket's doing our portrait, son. Every chief and his son have their portrait upon a shield. Ours will hang in the Great Hall forever."
Stoic looked at the Terror.
"I know you and Toothless consider my boy as your brother, but this is just for me and him."
"Of course, human father to my brother."
"Stoic," Toothless said. "He prefers to be called Stoic, since we won't call him Chief."
Sharpshot blinked. "I see." He hopped off Hiccup's shoulder and moved over to stand with Toothless. Stoic wrapped an arm around Hiccup's shoulder and guided him over to Bucket. Hiccup watched Gyda share a glance with Shadowfire before whispering to Astrid. Astrid nodded, and Gyda and Shadowfire walked out. Hiccup frowned, but Bucket tapped the top of his head. "No frowns," Bucket said before he moved back to the shield. Stoic placed a hand upon Hiccup's shoulder, and for the next hour or so, Bucket alternated between looking at them and painting the shield. Hiccup noted Astrid and Stormfly joining Toothless and Sharpshot near the paints, until Edith came into the hall and motioned for Astrid to come with her. Astrid waved and Stormfly bowed before both walked out after her mother. Toothless and Sharpshot laid down, resting, watching between both the door and the painting. Gyda and Shadowfire flew over the island, enjoying the silence. It had been a bit since the move to their new home that mother and son had had a chance to just fly. While Gyda loved both her sons equally, she held the rider bond with Shadowfire, and not a day went by when they were both not in the air. Frostfire and Pale Wing had joined them most of the time, when the two were not sneaking off on dates alone before the matehood ceremony. Since coming to Berg, it had been an eventful few days. Gyda knew Shadowfire needed a moment to just ride the wind currents with no one crowding his wings.
"Do you think Bucket will make that picture, Mum?"
Shadowfire asked as they banked around a sea stack. Gyda sighed. "I hope not, son. Berg is different now than it was shown in those TV shows. They know what the movie showed. They know things about Hiccup they never learned in the shows or the second movie. I hope that will translate onto them actually seeing Hiccup for who he is." Shadowfire flew on for several more wing flaps in silence. He banked right around another sea stack, crooning in joy as the sun's rays splashed across him.
"I didn't realize how cold it would be here. I'm glad I'm a fire dragon."
Gyda chuckled.
"Mum, what are we going to do about,
Gyda sighed, knowing exactly what her son was talking about. "I don't know, son. Stoic doesn't want the future told to him. Informing them of her would be telling them the future. They have a right to know, but Stoic seems pretty set on me keeping my mouth shut about things that will happen."
"You think Alpha will make it so that airmail thing?"
"I don't see why not. He likes inventing things."
"Maybe we could ask a Tiny Fang to find her so we can write to her. Tell her what's going on and see if she'll come back." Then you wouldn't be telling the future, and they can be a flock again.
Gyda tilted her head. It's a good idea, son. We shall see. Something to her right and down caught her attention. She looked, tapping the right side of Shadowfire's neck. Shadowfire banked right. Gyda hummed.
What are Hookfang and Snotlout doing on that sea stack?
Looks like arguing. Go down, son. I need to speak to Snotlout anyway. Even with Dog's Breath changing things. What is to come means we all have to stand in unity. Shadowfire dove. Just as he reached the edge of the sea stack, he flared his wings and hovered over the water. Hookfang and Snotlout turned to them. Snotlout glared. Hookfang tilted his head.
Is everything well, Elder Gyda?
Hookfang asked. Yes. Gyda said, Hiccup and his father are having a portrait done for the Great Hall, so Shadowfire and myself decided to fly. Is everything well here?
We're fine, Snotlout said, his arms crossed.
Gyda lifted an eyebrow. Want to tell that to someone who is not a mother? She asked.
Snotlout's eyes narrowed. You wouldn't understand anyways. You're not a Viking.
Neither are you.
I am a Viking!
Gyda grunted. Snotlout. No one on Berk has been a Viking for 300 years. Vikings raided others. What Berkian raided anyone since the Red Death made her nest at Acuor? Snotlout stared at her, blinking. Gyda sighed and tapped Shadowfire's neck. He beat his wings and moved over to the sea stack. Hookfang nudged Snotlout back. Shadowfire landed, flicking his wings and then curling them to the sides. Gyda climbed out of the saddle and gently stepped onto Shadowfire's paw before hopping down. She then walked under his neck and around to face Snotlout. What is wrong? She asked. Snotlout glared at her, as Gyda's eyes narrowed. Snotlout grunted.
What do you care? You're Hiccup's slave.
Snotlout, I am Hiccup's mage, not his slave. Now, what is wrong?
You might want to tell her, Shadowfire said. Mum's great at listening. Snotlout, Hookfang began. You need to tell someone.
Snotlout snorted. What good would it do? Nothing will change. What are you so certain will not change?
Snotlout began pacing. You don't care. You just want to keep Hiccup safe.
Gyda walked over and placed a hand upon Snotlout's shoulder, stopping his pacing. I want to keep everyone safe, Snotlout. What is wrong? She asked softly.
Snotlout hissed. It's my grandfather.
He growled out. Gyda frowned. Is your grandfather why you keep going against Hiccup? Snotlout's eyes hardened and he jerked away from Gyda, stomping over to the edge of the sea stack. Gyda walked over, standing beside him. She stood in silence for a while.
He never forgave Uncle Stoic, Snotlout whispered. Aunt Velka was his only daughter.
Gyda closed her eyes, sighing. I see. Has he been talking with you?
He said I should be in charge. He doesn't think Hiccup is Aunt Valka's son. He was there in your home, but he don't remember it. He told me to challenge Hiccup, to prove I'm the right heir. The right choice for the next chief. But if the dragons are right, I don't want to kill Hiccup, and I don't want to die.
The dragons are right, Snotlout. That law exists back in my time. Snotlout grunted and went to walk away. Gyda placed a hand upon his shoulder. What do you want, Snotlout?
What do you mean?
What do you want? Do you want to be in charge? Do you want to do as your grandfather says you must?
No! I watched my cousin, who I tormented, face a monster out of my nightmares. I saw him fall into that inferno. I saw his body in Toothless's paws.
Snotlout looked over the water.
On the boat ride home, after Astrid and Stormfly flew Hiccup to Berk, Uncle Stoic was talking to Gobber. I don't think he knew I was listening. He said a chief gives their lives for their tribe, and Hiccup just proved he was a chief. It hit me then. Uncle Stoic was right. Hiccup is the right one. He didn't hesitate to fight that monster. He didn't waver once.
Then why are you listening to your grandfather?
He's my grandfather! I have to listen to him!
Gyda sighed. Even adults can be wrong, Snotlout. Ombra was an adult dragon, a father in his own right. Yet he chose something he thought was the right path, but it ended up being wrong. I made mistakes while raising my sons. An ice terror was tearing things up in the country I lived in. People nearby blamed Frostfire. He told me he was innocent. Gyda took a deep breath. I was young. I was alone. Mum and her dragon died when I was 5. Dad and Ombra died the year before all this began. Nana, my dad's mother, had just died 2 weeks prior to the incidents. None of that excuses the fact that I didn't believe my own son.
Did you find out he was telling the truth?
Yes. A week later the culprit was caught. It was a young ice terror from a neighbouring county. He was seeking an adventure.
What did Frostfire say?
Gyda grunted. He nuzzled me, curled up in my lap, and whispered that he forgave me. I vowed that day to always believe my sons, to always stand up for my sons.
What do I do?
Snotlout asked after getting a moment of silence. Does your dad know that he is giving you this advice?
Snotlout's eyes narrowed. Dad was in the room when Grandpa started. He got up and left.
Gyda frowned. I see. What does your mother think?
She doesn't know.
What would she say if she knew?
She'd probably slap them both. She's done that before.
Gyda grinned. I could see that, she said. If she would slap them for what they are saying, then maybe you shouldn't follow it. What do you want to do?
I want to make everything up to Hiccup. I know I was wrong.
Then do that. Snotlout stared at her.
Just like that?
Just like that. Though you could start by apologising to Hiccup. Just know Toothless and Sharpshot are not going to let him be alone, so they will be there when you talk to him. Snotlout did not say anything. Gyda looked over her shoulder. Hookfang tipped his head once. Gyda smiled. She turned and moved to walk back to Shadowfire.
Gyda?
Snotlout began.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Gyda walked over and climbed into Shadowfire's saddle. Shadowfire crooned something to Hookfang in the old tongue before walking to the edge of the sea stack and slipping off. He rose and banked back towards Burke. Gyda waited until they left the sea stack in the distance. What did you say to Hookfang?
Told him he did a good job. Snotlout came around quicker than the shows.
Snotlout has a good heart, son.
You think he's going to leave Lady Alpha alone now?
Gyda laughed. We'll see, son. Knowing he was wrong about Hiccup is one thing. Knowing he should back away from Astrid is something else entirely. Shadowfire curled his neck so he could see his mother. She grinned and lifted an eyebrow. Shadowfire snorted and shook himself slightly, before facing forward and flying back towards the village. End of chapter. Hi guys, hope you enjoyed that one. I like that one because they need that, especially Snotlout. I like how they're organising it as it's not fully Snotlout's fault. Yes, he's a teenager who's making dumb decisions, but he's also locked in the middle. He's been told his whole life that he's the true Viking. Then he sees his cousin is the true Viking, the one he's been horrid to. He also sees the girl he wanted with Hiccup, but then his grandfather keeps saying, you're the proper one, challenge him, challenge him, challenge him, and constantly being told that by someone who's an authority figure in your life. No wonder the kid's conflicted. Anyway, you guys know the drill. Like, comment and subscribe and hit that bell to get notified for whenever I upload a new video. Have a good day, night, or whatever time zone you're in. Bye my guys, gals and non-binary pals. I'll see you in another video. Take care.